Thank you for coming today, and good afternoon to all members of the press. I'd like to give a few remarks in this press statement, and the press statement concerns cannabis. Bermudians, residents, and guest visitors alike who have been caught with small amounts of cannabis have suffered life-altering and devastating consequences for far too long. Bermudians have been prohibited from traveling to the United States and Canada. We have had our reputation smeared and job prospects shattered due to convictions for simple possession of cannabis. It is especially sad to frequently witness these statistics, especially among many of our youth, on what seems like a weekly basis. However, it cannot be said that the cannabis issue is limited to youthful indiscretions and lapses in judgment. Many individuals have been caught with small amounts of cannabis on repeated occasions, willing to take the risks in the same manner as some of our forefathers did when consuming alcohol during America's Prohibition. For years, we have seen court decisions result in different outcomes, which in turn has raised question marks in the public domain based on perceptions of racial, age, or gender bias, which are further exacerbated by what many perceive as a class or economic distinctions. While we accept that the media does not report all details of a particular case upon which judges contemplate in order to reach their ultimate decision or ruling, it is clear from various media reports and the pulse of the country that there is a wide perception that similar cases are treated differently based on the individual's last name, place of residence, profession, etc., which may in turn foster a culture of lack of respect or understanding for the court process generally. While we fully respect the separation of the legislature and the judiciary and the discretion afforded to sentencing judges, our position is that there needs to be greater uniformity in terms of the application of the law in certain circumstances. It is our opinion that cannabis use transcends race, age, gender, sexual orientation, marital status, class, and political affiliations. And while we accept that ignorance of the law is no excuse, we appreciate the sentiment shared by many that an unjust law is not good law. There appears to be a tidal wave of change taking place with our neighbors to our west and south regarding cannabis and cannabis usage. Some U.S. states are making cannabis legal for both medicinal purposes as well as recreational use. The question is whether Bermuda wants to wait until all of our neighbors make changes, or will we be bold enough to chart a new destiny and seek new ways of generating revenue, perhaps with an influx of tourists and/or from local taxes and license fees? The possibilities are endless if we only dare to be different and seize the moment as opposed to playing catch-up. As a loyal opposition, the PLP cannot advance any legislative action that involves revenue for the government. However, we have not let this stop our ability to play an active role in ensuring that the interests of the community are being met fairly, justly, and with expedience when appropriate. In 2012, the PLP promised in our election platform that we would seek to end the unnecessary criminalization of all of Bermuda's residents and guests and find new ways to regulate cannabis usage in Bermuda. In the government's 2013 speech from the throne, the One Bermuda Alliance has also expressed their willingness to discuss this issue openly and honestly. While we welcome the OBA for taking the lead in creating an island-wide discussion with town hall meetings and presentations to come, we feel that such discussions should be limited to the aspects of legalization and/or regulation, and that decisions concerning decriminalization or depenalizing small amounts of cannabis should take place with immediate effect, as there is an overwhelming level of support for such initiatives based on the feedback we have heard within our community that reflects the sentiment and contemporary mindset of our people today. It is our position that there has already been much discussion in the public domain in support of bringing an end to treating simple possession of small amounts of cannabis as a criminal offense, and therefore, we wish to move that such change can be advanced with the same urgency of now, not as a matter of shared sacrifice, but in the true spirit of doing what is right. To that end, the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party has drafted the Misuse of Drugs Amendment Act 2014, which we shall seek to table in the House of Assembly at the next day of business in February 2014. The proposed bill shall seek to remove the criminality for simple possession of cannabis under the currently prescribed limit, which is deemed to be 20 grams of cannabis under our current legislative framework. If the government in its wisdom feels that a lesser amount should be applied, we would be willing to discuss and, if need be, debate and amend this issue at a later stage. But for now, it is our position that this simple change will alleviate many families' concerns for their offspring, regardless of their age, and it may alleviate any trauma and stress for our visitors who come into possession of cannabis while they are on island. Many will no doubt question why such moves were not undertaken during our 14 years as government, but I wish to remind the public that MP Ashfield DeVent had spoken on cannabis extensively while he served the community, as well as our current party leader, who addressed these issues in his maiden speech as an MP. These and other brave voices ultimately led to our previous leader including such an action plan in our election platform. Under the leadership of the Honorable Marc A.R. Bean, JP-MP, the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party has committed itself to bringing about a new vision and a new energy to help move Bermuda forward. We have demonstrated progressive thinking under his leadership in our replies to the throne speech as well as our replies to the budget statement. We have supported much that the OBA has sought to pass into legislation, and we have not sought to criticize for the sake of criticism alone, despite the sound bites that often shape this perception as reality. In November last year, we attempted to bring a bill to abolish conscription, which was met with contempt and ridicule by many OBA members of the House of Assembly. We simultaneously drafted this decriminalization bill, which we had intended to table during the last parliamentary session. However, based on the OBA's approach to the conscription bill, we considered it necessary to take a different approach and afford the government more time to reflect on our proposed amendments. Therefore, in an effort to avoid such confrontation going forward, we have sought to advance our proposed amendments to the Misuse of Drugs Act in an effort to work with the OBA government so that they may review this draft bill critically on its merits, and where possible, provide further amendments, if necessary, to ensure that the bill represents the voice of the majority of our community. We hope that the OBA does not merely block the bill that we are seeking to bring forward. We are all aware and respect that the OBA is our government. However, where the law and the rules of the House of Assembly enable us to be proactive, we shall seek to take steps that no opposition has undertaken in the past by advancing legislation to alleviate the workload of the government in a spirit of collaboration to advance solutions for our collective benefit that we urgently require. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Senator, yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Finnegan.
Could you just, for our readers, could you just clarify the difference, or what it means to the man on the street, the difference between decriminalization and legalization?
Okay. Legalization would be having the full mantra of the legal authority that would be available for the use, supply, importation, and so forth of the cannabis genus and cannabis resin. The decriminalization aspect is specifically looking at saying that cannabis shall remain, and cannabis resin shall remain, a controlled drug on our list of controlled drugs pursuant to the Misuse of Drugs Act, but that there would be some lawful authority in the guise of having possession under a certain amount. So that means that the individual who is still looking to sell and supply the cannabis, if factors are present, would be committing an offense. And so we have taken the steps also to look at other ways to try and safeguard the community with certain amendments to the particular bill.
And one other question, as a criminal defense lawyer.
Yes.
Have you personally, you talk about people having their lives blighted, but have you personally encountered cases yourself and dealt with these?
Yes.
Comedians who, for what is seen by many as a minor offence, have had their lives blighted?
Yes, I mean, there are many from a myriad of situations, different age brackets, individuals who might have been caught decades ago who are still suffering consequences. And so while we don't have full powers to work retroactively, the question is, what can we do to protect individuals going forward and just try and afford a better holistic society where we're not making criminal out of individuals who effectively are dealing with the health issue.